Hi everyone. I am Shauna Robertson. I'm the DisTerrMem project administrator, and I'm based in Bath University. I work there 1 day a week, typically on a Tuesday. So if you've emailed me and it's taken a while to get back to you, apologies, but that's why. I'm not ignoring you. So part of my role here is internal and external communications, and I'd like to talk a bit about both of those today, but with the main focus on external communications, particularly through our website and our social media channels. I'm going to be working on developing a communications plan, which I'd see as being not something set in stone, but more fluid, open, collaborative, a kind of framework that can evolve to reflect our collective learning and development as the project moves forward. So today, really, I just want to share some ideas, some thoughts, and maybe a rough outline, and then invite your thoughts and input into the process. And then I'll draft that up into a framework document, and I'll share that on our Workplace by Facebook space, and also chat about it further with the project management team. So I think it's important to have a collaborative process here, because communications are something we're all going to need to take ownership of and engage in collectively as a group. So before I focus on external communications, I just want to say a few brief words on internal comms, because we've each had different levels of engagement with the project so far, so I thought it would be helpful to just share a quick overview of how and where you can find information and updates relating to the project. So we have two main avenues for communications between the project team. And the first of those is Workplace by Facebook, where we share ongoing conversations, updates, requests for input. And so if you're new to the project and don't have a login yet, please contact the project lead in your organization, or you can email me and we'll get you set up on there. And it's a good idea to use Workplace as much as possible rather than email for anything that's potentially relevant to everyone across the project. Because that way, if we're asking a question or seeking help or input, anyone can answer, and then the answer is then available to everyone, which saves repeating things, and it also saves people being bombarded with long email threads. There's also 4 subgroups for each of the work packages where everyone is collaborating on the literature reviews currently. And as the project evolves, we can create subgroups for anything else that you'd like to focus on through online collaboration. So do get into the habit of checking Workplace quite regularly, say at least once a week, because there will be project updates and requests for input. So it'd be great if everyone would be proactive in keeping in the loop with that. The second main avenue is the DisTerrMem website, and we have a private password protected area of our website for sharing key documents and processes. And to access that, go to the website at www.disterrmem.eu. Scroll down to the footer on any page of the website, and you can log in there. And the password is DTM 2019, DTM 2019. And this is the current menu of what you can find in there. I'll just highlight a few brief examples. We have a section called Agreements and Policies. In there you'll find everything from all of the original project master documents, the grant agreement, consortium agreement with all of the requirements of the project, if you need to refer to those. There's also a project handbook that extracts some of the key information from those documents in a more digestible form, and also includes other useful information such as contact details for everyone on the project. And there's also all of the information and paperwork you need regarding research ethics and data protection here too, which Sophie is going to talk about more today. There's a secondment section with all of the processes and the forms you need to organise and manage your secondments. And obviously we have quite specific requirements here that are a condition of our EC grant. So please be sure to read these and be aware of these, because if we're audited by the EC at any point, it's imperative that we can demonstrate total adherence to those requirements. There's a section on external communications with some guidelines and templates, which I'm going to talk about a bit more shortly. And there's also a training and support section where we'll be putting much of the material from today. So please do log in, take a look around, familiarize yourself with the area. And if there's anything that's not there you feel would be useful or needs updating or expanding, or if there's a broken link, do let me know by popping a comment on Workplace. Thank you. So onto external communications. I'm going to start with a quick overview of the website's aims, which essentially mirror our overall communication aims, just so that we're all on the same page about what we're trying to achieve, and also they're quite relevant to the blog posts that you're all going to be providing. So, number one, to promote awareness of and engagement with the project among relevant stakeholders internationally, obviously. Two, to encourage and prompt stakeholders to contact and engage with the researchers taking part in the project. So it's not just about passively sharing information. We want it to stimulate action, involvement, and this is one of the reasons we've included quite extensive profiles of each of you on the website, along with links to your web profiles, your social media, and your direct email addresses. Excuse me, to make you all very visible, to promote your expertise individually as well as collectively, and also, importantly, to make it easy for people to contact any of us in any organisation in any country about the project. So do keep an eye on your own profile, and if you spot anything that needs editing or updating or a link that appears broken, please do email me and I will fix that. 3, to deliver timely updates on the current status and activities of the project throughout its life and to share work in progress. This one is key to stakeholder engagement, and it's not just about publishing final outputs. What we want is something quite dynamic throughout, an ongoing dialogue with our audience. So again, this is where the blog and events on the website are really important, not just our secondment blogs, but also I think it would be good to include some regular articles that are summarising the status of the project and work in progress, findings to date, questions arising, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on. Excuse me. 4, to promote public and stakeholder events that will be organised by the project throughout its duration. So this includes local events happening in your organisations, so not just major project events like the stakeholder workshops or the final conference. I think the more activity we can show and promote, the better. So please be sure to email me details of all the events relevant to the project that are happening in your organisation. So for example, when people are on secondment, they may be giving workshops and seminars. Send me details of those. Host organisations might be staging events for the benefit of their secondees. Again, it would be great to receive details of those. And there is a template in the internal documents area of our website in the communications section, and that sets out the information I need you to send me about each event so it can be added to the website in a consistent format. Thank you. To support the building of a stakeholder database by inviting stakeholders to register their interest, make contact, subscribe to news and updates via the blog. And this is something we need to think quite carefully about in the light of European data protection regulations in terms of what contact data we can and can't gather and what purposes we can and can't use it for. Which is again why the blog can be quite key here, since if people opt in by signing up to the blog, we can then use the blog to communicate with them in various ways, because we can't just email them or store their details for any purpose that we might like. 6, to raise the profile of the participating organisations and researchers, establishing them as go-to experts and consultants in the relevant field of research. So again, supporting your individual careers and profiles, as well as the partner organisations and the project as a whole. 7, to integrate with the project's social media channels so that there's a cohesive overall online presence and everything works together rather than in isolation. So our website will include links from every page to our social media accounts. It doesn't just yet, and that's deliberate because there's no point driving people to something that doesn't yet have strong content, and we haven't focused on building up our social media content yet, but as soon as we do, the website will include links to those. And conversely, all of our blog posts and our events that are posted on the website will be automatically shared on our social media channels. I will link up the technologies so that happens automatically. 8, to publish project findings, outcomes, and policy recommendations. So as well as seeking publication in relevant academic and professional journals, the website also allows us to be our own publishers, and which gives us the potential to reach a much wider audience. 9, to continue to provide a marketing and communication platform beyond the completion of the 3-year funded project, so that the project's outputs continue to deliver value. Obviously, that's quite a long way off yet, and we can talk about that some more at a later stage. And finally, 10, to increase awareness of the problem being investigated in the public sphere, and not only in the countries studied, but also across Europe generally and in the wider world. So these are the aims of the website and related media. And in terms of how all this happens, I'm responsible for managing the website, but obviously I need ongoing input from all of you to do that successfully, in terms of keeping the content updated, receiving blog articles, details of events. And so I'm going to talk a bit more about a couple of those now, and also about how we promote the website and attract people to it. So, what is the plan? Essentially, the real success of a website, like most things in life, comes down to the quality of your site and the extent to which it meets your users' needs, gives them something of interest, of value, something they want or need or find useful. That's the real trick to keeping people coming back and engaging with you. And in my experience, the way to generate traffic, as we say in web world, and keep drawing people back to a project website such as this one is to try to become a kind of a hub, an essential resource for people who are operating in that subject area. So it's not just about focusing on being the DisTerrMem website and telling the world all about what you're doing, like a static shop window. Instead, it's more about becoming a centre of expertise, of dialogue, of information in the subject area at hand. So you become this kind of hub, this place to go. And the ideal is that as soon as somebody in the field is thinking, well, I need to find out something about managing memory in disputed territories, this becomes their first port of call. And while it may not give them everything that they need, obviously, the idea is that they will have confidence that it will point them in the right direction, provide access to the right people and experts who can help them to resolve their information need, their question. So that's your holy grail, to be that go-to place. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. It's a long game, and it takes an integrated and proactive approach between the website, your social media channels, and in-person events and conversations. So we'll really need to draw on the collective contacts and expertise and ongoing activities of all of us if we want to get there. But that collectivity, I think, is the real strength here, and hopefully we can achieve much more as a group than we otherwise could individually. So a key element of this really is the blog, because that's the part of the website that's going to keep people coming back, or not. Now, all researchers are required to provide a blog article after each secondment, and that's part of our grant agreement, so it's pretty much non-negotiable. So I'd really appreciate if everyone could please take ownership of doing that within 2 to 4 weeks of returning from every secondment, so I don't have to keep chasing them up. Thank you. And content-wise, I think we really need to do something that works rather harder and smarter for us and for our audience than just a straight write-up of our secondment experiences. Because our audience are professional people, they're juggling multiple high-level jobs and responsibilities, and frankly, they don't have time to be sitting reading blogs unless those blogs have something to say that's of direct relevance and interest and value to their own research and practice. So on that basis, I've put together some outline guidelines for the blog articles, and you can find that on the team area of the DisTerrMem website within the communications section. And please do read these before drafting your blog. And if you have any doubts or queries, or if you'd like to chat through an idea you've had, please do feel free to drop me a line, either on Workplace or by email, and I'll be happy to chat about it with you. But for now, let me just briefly highlight a few very quick points from those guidelines, based on things that people have asked me. Content-wise, again, really consider the target audience and the project stakeholders. So think about academic researchers, civil society groups and NGOs, policymakers and practitioners in national and regional organizations, cultural practitioners, and also potentially selected specialist academic and professional press and media. What will be of interest to them about the work that you're doing right now and your activities during secondment? What will inspire them to follow the blog, to engage with the project, to make contact with our research team? And I think you guys are going to know this better than me because you are basically part of that target audience. But some examples might include honing in on a specific element of the research you've been undertaking while on secondment, what questions you've been exploring, the approaches you've taken, your initial observations, anything unexpected or surprising that you've discovered. Maybe you could focus on a report of an interesting event that you attended or indeed delivered. Or perhaps hone in on some elements of the contacts you made while on secondment. So did you spend time with particular colleagues or stakeholders? What were your discussions? What did you learn from those interactions? So those are just a few potential subjects to consider. Don't forget also images. Images are important to a blog. So do include a small selection of good quality photographs and think about that obviously while you're out on secondment and take your camera with you. So do have a look at the guidelines on the website and also do let me know if you find them helpful or not, and if not, how they might be improved. And I also just want to mention briefly other types of blog content, which I think is potentially key to encouraging stakeholders to sign up to the blog and engage with the project. So in addition to your post-secondment articles, perhaps we could schedule a series of occasional articles by selected project leads and researchers that explore relevant topics such as more major updates on our research work in progress. So for example, after we've completed the literature reviews, we could have a couple of articles from each of the 4 groups on what's been explored there, what challenges were encountered, what key findings were, and providing a summary. Again, we can have reports of relevant events delivered or attended. Some news commentary articles would be great, where we're picking up on relevant stories in the media and commenting on those and relating them to the content of our research project. Similarly, some opinion pieces, reflections, pointers to any other research that's being published in the subject area, and or interesting things happening out in practice. Might we ask selected stakeholders for occasional input, updates, maybe even guest blogs or interviews? And having guest blogs and interviews really does help things to get things shared, because if somebody else is being featured on your website, they will do the work of sharing that for you. So that again helps you to reach a wider audience. And also bear in mind that these don't all have to be just written articles. We can include video content, for example, if we're doing interviews, podcasts. So I'd like to invite everyone to have a think about that if you would. And then for the draft communications plan, I'll develop a content calendar that will map out over the time period of the project a schedule of all of your blog pieces that you'll be submitting after your secondments. And then we can interweave that with some other ideas for articles, so we have a really nice schedule of interesting content. One more thing it'd be useful to think about in terms of the blog would be learning from others. You know, who does it well? What individuals or organizations in your professional field are really strong on blogs and social media? So who are your go-to experts and resources who we could observe and learn from? So perhaps we could share some examples on Workplace and have a pool of good practice that we can draw on. I just want to talk quickly about social media. And I'm not going to do a training on this as such because I'm sure you all have varying levels of experience and engagement with different social media channels. So what might be useful for some may not be for others. But what I do want to do is just quickly discuss how we might approach social media for the DisTerrMem project. So we've set up a DisTerrMem project account on Twitter, and we can also set one up on Facebook if we feel that is desirable and useful. Personally, I'm not entirely convinced of the real benefit to effort ratio of Facebook pages for professional purposes. I think people tend to use Twitter much more professionally and Facebook much more personally. But I could be wrong, and I think some countries and organizations, such as our Armenian colleagues, perhaps tend to use Facebook professionally more than we do here in the UK. So it'd be good to share some ideas on that. And really, it all comes down to how active our stakeholder audience is professionally on Facebook and whether they would welcome a presence and interaction there or not. So we can talk some more about that. But so far, we haven't begun fully using social media. First, we need to agree a workable, collective, high quality and consistent way of doing that, which I'd like to talk about here and pick your brains about a little bit, if I may. First things first, if you do use Twitter professionally, please be sure to follow the project's Twitter account. As I previously mentioned, as soon as we become active in our social media use, our website will be integrated with Twitter and Facebook if we choose to use it, so that all pages of the website include links to our social media pages, and all of our blog posts and events will automatically be shared on our social media channels. But beyond that, we need a rolling, regular program of seeking to attract the attention of and engaging with our stakeholders through social media. Which sounds simple enough, but isn't quite when you have about 50 people across 6 organizations in 4 countries working on a project. So how do we do it? I think there's 3 key elements or questions to consider here. And the first one is, who are we targeting and how do we reach that audience? And I think Twitter offers a really great opportunity here because Twitter has a culture of, if you follow me, I'll follow you. So we need to begin by following organizations and individuals of interest and relevance to the project, and also to keep expanding this as we go. So I'm thinking that maybe the best approach here might be to pool our collective knowledge and come up with a list of who to follow. So perhaps we could all either individually post suggestions in Workplace, or we could have some brainstorms maybe within each partner organization and each collate a list and share them with each other. I think perhaps something along the latter lines might be good. And we can discuss that more perhaps in the Q&A afterwards. But it would be good to already have some good quality content in place on our Twitter account before we start following key people, so that when they then look to see if they wish to reciprocate and follow us, then there's actually something of interest there. What should we be posting and how do we manage our social media activity? A brief word on social media etiquette, which I'm sure you're probably all aware of, but it's easy to forget when one is very busy. The guiding principle of social media, and the thing that actually most people get wrong in practice is this: don't broadcast, have conversations. Social media is really about, well, as the name social media suggests, it's about being an active member of a mutually supportive community, not selling yourself or your work, broadcasting to the world what you're doing without any reciprocation for other people. Now, the great irony, of course, is that most people who are on social media are there predominantly to sell themselves or promote their work. But we have to be a bit clever about how we do this. If you do it by simply broadcasting what you're doing rather than engaging with other people's posts and tweets, then you're not really going to win friends or influence people in the long term. So you have to balance your own updates with other types of content. So you monitor the news feeds of people you're following, look at their tweets and posts, and you like, share, comment, engage in dialogue. Because if people see that you're supporting them, they will tend to support you back. It's also useful to look out for and comment on current events, to show your relevance to the real world, to be topical. And again, things that are topical are much more likely to get shared and retweeted. Another interesting way to use social media that tends to get quite a good following is to use it for your inputs as well as for your outputs. So ask people questions, invite opinions, put some ideas out there and ask for comments. People love to be asked their opinions, so that's a great way to get conversation and dialogue going with your audience. Anyway, these are just a few really quick basic pointers, but when we establish who's going to lead on managing our social media activity, I can organise some more specific support and training if that's needed. Which brings me neatly onto the next point, which is the key question of who is going to lead on this and action it, and what kind of time commitment does that involve, what support will be available. So social media isn't an activity that I can manage, partly because my job at 1 day a week is already more than fully loaded, but mainly because I'm not one of you. I'm not a researcher. I'm not a subject specialist with the relevant knowledge and contacts in this field of research, which is really what this needs. So Sophie and I have been thinking about how best to manage this, and I've also consulted with Bath University's social media team. And our conclusion is that it's not really a good idea to have a free-for-all where we can all log in and contribute to Twitter, etc. This really needs focused attention and leadership and a planned, consistent approach. So what I suggest, and again, this is open for discussion, but that we perhaps have between 1 and 2 leads for social media posting, maybe supported by a small working group of up to maybe say 3 people. So you've got a total of certainly no more than 5. And if lots of people were interested in doing that, we could rotate this group maybe every 6 to 12 months, so different people can have that opportunity. And I can work with that team to explore different approaches, develop a content calendar, share some key tips and strategies, and also look at the statistics and monitor the results that we're having. And we also have a really great social media team here at the University of Bath who can provide lots of support. And then we can all share the results of our learning and experience with the wider project team. So for example, at the next summer school, we might do a session on what we're learning about how things are working for us on social media, so that everybody then benefits from an improved knowledge of using social media to support research activity. Time-wise, I think it really needs activity at least minimum weekly. Ideally, one would monitor it more often, so for example on 2 days a week or more if you're interested and have time, so that we can potentially be commenting in a timely way to posts by other stakeholders, by people we're following, and also tap into any emerging news and events that are relevant. And also we could create a subgroup on Workplace by Facebook where everyone across the project can submit ideas and suggestions to the social media team and possible things that they might share and post. So anyway, those are some ideas about a possible way forward there, and I'd really welcome your thoughts on that in the Q&A that follows. So finally, just super quickly to wrap up, from here forward, I'll draft up an initial communications plan reflecting the elements discussed here, and also several others. It's not just about the web and social media, so it hasn't been possible to discuss everything here today because we have limited time. And then I'll share a draft of that on the internal area of our website and add a post on Workplace to let you know that it's there. And as I mentioned earlier, the idea is that this will be a living, flexible document that evolves with the project as we learn collectively along the way. But in the meantime, I'd just like to leave you with just a few really simple, quick actions you can take now and on an ongoing basis to support the promotion of the project and our website and social media. And these are blogs and events. Obviously, if you could all sign up to follow the DisTerrMem website blog, that would be great. Also invite relevant colleagues, contacts, stakeholders to sign up to it too. Do remember, please, to submit your blog articles within 2 to 4 weeks of returning from secondment, and check out the guidelines on the team area of the website. Again, if you have any questions, if you're in doubt, do feel free to drop me a line or give me a call at any time. I'd be happy to chat that through with you. And also submit details of local events happening in your organisation so we can add those to the website. On social media, sign up to follow the DisTerrMem Twitter account, which is already set up. And also, if we decide to use Facebook as well, sign up to that as well. We all need to brainstorm individuals and organisations to follow in the hope that they will reciprocate and follow us. And then obviously we need to identify leads and a small working group to take forward management of our social media accounts. And in general terms, again, very simple actions. If it feels appropriate, include the project logo and the website URL in your email signatures. Add it to your professional online profiles, to your website biography page, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, academia, ResearchGate, etc. And also mention the project, the website, verbally at relevant events that you're attending. You might wish to include the website URL, details of our social media channels in your slides or printed handouts or post-event follow-up emails. Again, if it feels appropriate, use a direct call to action there in terms of inviting people to sign up to the blog, to receive project updates, and also to follow us and engage with us on social media. Thank you for your time and attention, and it would be great to hear your thoughts and questions now in the Q&A. Thanks.